Commander Veltar gripped his command chair as the warship dropped out of hyperspace. His four eyes focused on the main screen, watching a yellow star grow larger. The sensors showed a planet in the third orbit, exactly where the distress signal had come from. "Sir," his communication officer spoke with nervous clicks. "The signal stopped 3 days ago. No response to our calls." Veltar nodded. His people, the Silani, had ruled this part of space for 2,000 years. They were warriors, born on a world of endless storms and metal-eating rain. Their bodies were strong, their claws sharp, their minds quick. But even they had never tried to land on a Class 12 death world. "Show me the planet data," he ordered. The numbers made his second heart skip a beat. Gravity was 30% higher than Silani normal. The atmosphere had poison levels that would kill most known life forms in minutes. Radiation from the star was so strong that their ship's shields were already working hard, just staying in orbit. The surface temperature swung from boiling hot to freezing cold every few hours. "Who would send a distress signal from this nightmare?" asked Sub-Commander Crixtall, her tail twitching with worry. "Someone dying very slowly," Veltar replied. "Scan for life signs." The results came back impossible. The sensors found not just life, but lots of it. Plants, animals, and what looked like a settlement of thinking beings, all living happily on a world that should have been empty rock. "Could the sensors be broken?" Elite Guard Morden asked. His people were bred for war, but even he sounded scared. "Run the scan again," Veltar ordered. Same results. There was definitely a town down there. The energy readings showed power systems, buildings, and what looked like farming areas. Someone had not just survived on this death world, but built a home. "Take us down," Veltar said finally. "But keep weapons ready. Anyone who can live on that world might be very dangerous." The ship shook as they entered the thick atmosphere. Warning lights flashed as the outside hull heated up from contact with the poisonous air. Through the window, Veltar could see purple lightning dancing between red clouds. The ground below was covered in plants that glowed with their own light. Landing. "Site located," the pilot announced. "There's a flat area near the settlement. Sir, you should see this." On the main screen, they could see the human town. Small houses with smoke coming from chimneys. Green fields of growing food. A few people walking around like they were enjoying a nice day. One human was actually working in a garden, pulling up plants with his bare hands. "Those plants," the science officer whispered. "According to our database, just touching them should burn through skin and bone." Veltar watched the human hold up a bright red root, examine it, then toss it into a basket. The human was humming. The ship landed with a heavy thud. Immediately, their life support system started screaming warnings. The air outside would kill them in less than 10 minutes, even with their enhanced bodies. Veltar ordered his troops into full combat armor with closed air systems. "Remember," he told his 5 best warriors as they prepared to leave the ship, "we're here to help survivors and find out what happened to their distress signal. But stay alert. Anyone who can live on this world has to be tougher than they look." The airlock opened, and Veltar stepped onto the surface of Kepler 442b. His boots sank into soft dirt that his sensors said was full of acid and metal fragments. In the distance, he could hear birds singing. Birds. On a Class 12 death world. A human male walked toward them from the garden. He was tall with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore simple clothes and carried gardening tools that Veltar's combat system identified as weapons capable of cutting through battle armor. "Hello there," the human said in perfect galactic common. I'm Kim Day. You folks look lost. Everything okay with your ship? Veltar's language center needed a moment to process this. The human was asking if they needed help. On a world where simply breathing should kill them. I am Commander Veltar of the Hegemony Warfleet, he announced formally. We received a distress signal from this system. Are you in need of assistance? Kim Day looked confused for a moment, then laughed. Oh, that. Sorry about that. My nephew was playing with the old emergency radio last week. Probably pressed some buttons he shouldn't have. Hope we didn't worry anyone. Behind Veltar, he heard, Morden's breathing unit malfunction from shock. You mean, Veltar said slowly, there is no emergency? Not unless you count my wife being mad about the vegetable garden, Kim Day replied with a smile. The local root borers got into the spicy peppers again. But that's farming life, you know. A woman appeared on the porch of the nearest house. She was hanging wet clothes on a line. One of the items she hung up was clearly the hide of something that had very large teeth and claws. Ha! Kim Day called. Out. We have visitors, the woman waved cheerfully and called back. Tell them lunch is almost ready if they want to stay. Veltar's mind tried to process this information. These humans were offering food to strange aliens who had just landed on their world, food prepared on a planet where everything was poison. Sir, Krixtal whispered through their private comm channel. The atmospheric readings are getting worse. How are they breathing this air? Before Veltar could answer, a young human male came out of what looked like a barn. He was carrying farming tools over his shoulder. Veltar's combat sensors immediately tagged every tool as a deadly weapon. Jun, Kim Day called. Come meet our guests. The young man jogged over with an easy smile. Hey there, I'm Lee Jun. You guys are from pretty far away, aren't you? Those are some serious-looking environmental suits. We are Silani warriors, Veltar explained. We came because of a distress signal. Yeah, Uncle Day told me. Sorry about that. I was trying to fix the old radio and probably made it send out random signals. Lee Jun looked embarrassed. I'm not great with electronics yet. Yet? Morden asked. Well, I'm only 15, but Grandfather Juan says I should learn to fix everything myself. Can't always rely on tech, you know? Veltar stared at this young human, 15 years old. On most civilized worlds, 15-year-olds were still learning basic math. This one was maintaining electronics and carrying weapons as farming tools. Perhaps, Veltar said carefully, we should speak with your planetary defense coordinator. Kim, Day and Lee Jun looked at each other and laughed. Planetary defense coordinator? Kim Day repeated. This is New Busan, population 847. We don't really have titles like that. Then who is in charge of protecting your settlement? Lee Jun shrugged. We all look out for each other. Though I guess if something really dangerous showed up, we'd call the adults together and figure it out. Veltar's worldview cracked a little more. No military command structure, no defensive positions, no weapons arrays. Just farmers living happily on a world that should kill them. Commander. His science officer's voice came through his earpiece. I've been analyzing the local flora. Sir, that garden they're working in, every single plant would be classified as a biological weapon on our homeworld. Veltar looked at Kim Day, who was still holding his basket of deadly roots and smiling pleasantly. Would you like to see the town? Kim Day offered. We don't get many visitors out here. It would be nice to show someone around. As they walked toward the settlement, Veltar noticed that his warriors kept checking their weapons and scanning for threats. But the only threats they found were the flowers blooming along the pathway, each one apparently capable of producing nerve toxins that could drop a Silani warrior in seconds. The humans, meanwhile, walked through this garden of death like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Veltar had not slept well. His ship's computers had spent the entire night screaming warnings about the toxic atmosphere, deadly radiation, and dangerous life forms surrounding them. Every few minutes, the sensors detected something new that could kill his crew in horrible ways. The humans, meanwhile, had slept with their windows open. "Sir," Crixtal reported as she entered his quarters, "the human named Kim Day is here. He brought something." Veltar followed her to the main airlock. Through the thick protective glass, he could see Kim Day standing outside without any protective gear. He was holding a covered basket and looked perfectly comfortable breathing air that would dissolve Silani lung tissue. "Good morning, Commander," Kim Day called out when he saw them. "I hope you slept well. My wife Hai sent me over with some breakfast for you and your crew." Veltar stared at the basket. His ship's external sensors were detecting chemical signatures that made the computer suggest immediate evacuation procedures. "That is very kind," Veltar said through the ship's external speaker system. "But our dietary requirements are quite specific." "Oh, don't worry about that," Kim Day replied with a wave. "My neighbor Choi Mina checked your ship's computer files last night. She figured out what you folks can eat. Used to be a food scientist before she moved here." "She accessed our computer files?" Morden whispered in alarm. "How did she do that?" Crixtal asked. Kim Day heard them through the speaker. "Mina's really good with computers. Plus, your ship was broadcasting on 17 different frequencies last night. She said it was probably just automatic systems sharing information, but it kept her awake. So she wrote a little program to make it quieter and saw your dietary data while she was in there." Veltar felt his second heart stop. A human civilian had casually hacked into a hegemony warship's computer system because it was too noisy. "Anyway," Kim Day continued, "Mina and my sister-in-law Seo Hyun worked together to make you something special. They even used ingredients from off-world, so it should be safe for you." Despite every warning system on his ship telling him this was a terrible idea, Veltar found himself curious. "What kind of ingredients?" "Well, they started with some grains we grow here that are similar to your homeworld food. Then they added some protein from local animals that should match your nutritional needs, and Hyun made a fermented drink that should help your digestive systems handle the different chemistry." The basket in Kim Day's hands was making Veltar's. Sensors detect compounds that existed only in military laboratories. "Perhaps," Veltar said slowly, "we could join you for this meal in a controlled environment." "Great." Kim Day smiled. Hai set up a table outside. The weather's beautiful today. Only mild acid rain predicted for this afternoon. 20 minutes. Later, Veltar and his two senior officers stood in their full environmental suits around a wooden table that had been placed in Kim Day's backyard. The table was set with simple dishes and cups that looked completely normal. The food and drinks on the table were making their suits' threat detection systems flash warnings in colors Veltar had never seen before. Choi Mina approached the table carrying a large pot. She was a small woman with quick movements and bright eyes. Behind her came Seo Hyun, taller and calmer, carrying plates of what looked like bread. "Welcome to New Busan," Mina said cheerfully. "I hope you don't mind that I peeked at your computer systems. I was curious about how different species handle nutrition." "You are a food scientist?" Veltar asked. "Was," Mina corrected. Back on Earth, I worked on developing new food sources for space colonies. Here I mostly just try to keep the local plants from eating my garden. She said this like it was a normal problem to have. The plants eat gardens? Crixtal asked. Some of them, Seo-Hyun explained as she sliced the bread. But they're usually polite about it. They wait until we're done harvesting before they try to take over. It's all about timing. Veltar watched Seo-Hyun handle the bread with bare hands. His sensors informed him that the bread contained trace amounts of radioactive materials and 3 different types of alcohol that would be illegal to possess on most civilized worlds. How do you make bread with such interesting ingredients? Mordun asked. Oh, the local grain naturally ferments, Hyon replied. Something about the soil chemistry here. We just have to be careful not to let it ferment too long, or it becomes too strong to eat safely. Too strong for humans? Veltar asked. Well, last batch we let go too long knocked out old grandfather Juan for 6 hours, Mina laughed. And he's been drinking homemade spirits for 70 years. We had to use that batch to fuel the generator instead. They were using failed bread as fuel. Veltar's mind struggled with this information. Kim Dae sat down at the table and gestured for the aliens to join him. Please, sit. Mina worked really hard to make this safe for you. Veltar carefully lowered himself onto a wooden chair that creaked under the weight of his armor. Through his suit's external cameras, he could see the food more clearly. There were eggs that seemed to glow with their own internal light, sliced fruit that was changing colors as he watched, meat that his database identified as coming from an animal that shouldn't exist. These eggs, Crixtal said carefully. What kind of animal do they come from? Local birds, Hyon answered. They're really hardy. Have to be to survive the seasonal atmosphere changes. Their eggs are actually pretty mild compared to what they were eating back on their original world. Original world? Mordun asked. Earth, Kim Dae explained. We brought a lot of Earth animals with us when we settled here. They've adapted really well. Some of them better than we expected. Mina poured a dark liquid into their cups. The liquid was steaming, and Veltar's sensors detected chemical compounds that were used to clean starship hulls. This is our local version of coffee, Mina said. I diluted it way down for you. Regular strength would probably be too much for non-human systems. How much did you dilute it? Veltar asked. About 20-1, Mina replied. Regular strength. Coffee here could probably strip paint. But that's what happens when you grow coffee beans in soil with this mineral content. Veltar looked at his officers. They were all thinking the same thing. These humans were offering them a meal that could be classified as chemical warfare, and they were treating it like a friendly gesture between neighbors. Please, Kim Dae said, try the food. Mina spent hours making sure it would work with your biology. Against his better judgment, Veltar activated his suit's emergency feeding system. The system was designed to test and process food in combat situations. It could neutralize most toxins and identify dangerous substances before they reached his mouth. He picked up one of the glowing eggs with his suit's mechanical hands. The feeding system ran 17 different tests on it before concluding that it was probably safe if consumed in very small quantities. The taste was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was rich and complex, with flavors that seemed to change as he ate. His enhanced taste sensors identified at least 40 different chemical compounds, including several that his people used as military stimulants. This is interesting, he managed to say. Good interesting or bad interesting? Seo-hyun asked with concern. I am not certain yet, Veltar replied honestly. Krixtal tried the bread. Her suit's systems immediately began working to process the various alcohols and radioactive traces. It is very energizing, she said carefully. That's the local grain, Hyon explained proudly. It's naturally fortified with minerals from the soil. Great for energy, though we have to be careful not to eat too much at once. Morden sipped the coffee. His suit's systems went into emergency detox mode immediately. What did you say this was diluted from? He asked weakly. Regular strength coffee, Mina replied. We use that to jumpstart the farming equipment when it won't start in cold weather. Works better than most industrial solvents. Veltar realized that what the humans called a mild breakfast was actually a carefully controlled dose of substances that would be considered dangerous military supplies on most worlds, and they were eating it as a normal morning meal. This is how you start every day? He asked. Oh no, Kim Day laughed. This is just a light breakfast since we have guests. Wait until you see what Hai is planning for lunch. The aliens sat around the wooden table, trying to process what they had just eaten. Veltar's combat suit was running continuous detox programs, while his officers' life support systems worked overtime to keep them alive after their light breakfast. Kim. Day poured himself another cup of the coffee that had nearly shut down Morden's nervous system. He drank it like it was water. So, Kim Day said conversationally, what brings you folks to our little corner of space, besides the false alarm? With the radio, I mean. Veltar struggled to form words. His people were warriors who feared nothing. But watching humans casually consume industrial-grade toxins was breaking his understanding of reality. We patrol this sector, he finally managed. We protect civilized worlds from dangerous threats. That's nice, said Park High as she joined them at the table. She carried a small child who looked to be about 8 years old. This is our daughter, Kim Bo. Say hello to our visitors, Bo. The little girl waved shyly at the aliens. In her other hand, she held what Veltar's sensors identified as a local flower. According to his database, that flower produced a neurotoxin so potent that it was banned as a weapon of war in 47 star systems. Pretty flower, Krixtal said carefully. I picked it for Mama, Kim Bo replied proudly. But I had to be careful not to squeeze it too hard, or it gets all sticky. The sticky substance the child was casually avoiding was apparently capable of melting through Silani battle armor. Bo, don't play with your food, Park High said gently, setting down a plate of what looked like normal fruit. Eat your breakfast properly. The child obediently picked up a piece of fruit and bit into it. Veltar's scanners detected enough natural acids in that single piece of fruit to neutralize enemy equipment. Children adapt so quickly, Park High said to the aliens. When we first arrived here, we were worried about how the kids would handle the new environment, but they took to it immediately. How long have you been on this world? Morden asked. About 5 years now, Kim Day replied. We were part of the third wave of colonists. The first group had already figured out the basics of living here, so it wasn't too hard to settle in. The first group survived how long? Krixtal asked. Oh, they've been here almost 15 years now, High said. My father-in-law was one of the original settlers. He should be here soon, actually. He likes to join us for breakfast when we have visitors. As if summoned by her words, an elderly human male approached the table. He moved with the easy confidence of someone completely comfortable in his environment. Behind him walked a young man and woman who looked to be teenagers. Grandfather won, Kim Bo called out happily. "Good morning, little flower," the old man replied, lifting the child onto his lap. He nodded politely to the aliens. "Welcome to New Busan. I'm Won-tae, Kim Dae's father. These are some of our young people, Nam-tae and Yoon-soo." The teenagers waved politely. Nam-tae was carrying what looked like school books, but Veltar's sensors detected materials inside them that glowed with radiation signatures. "We're just finishing our morning lessons," Yoon-soo explained. "Nam-tae was showing me how to identify which local minerals are safe to handle without gloves." "Some of them are perfectly fine," Nam-tae added helpfully. "You just have to know which ones will burn through skin and which ones only cause minor chemical reactions." They were discussing safety procedures for handling materials that would require hazmat teams on civilized worlds. "Grandfather Wan," Kimbo said excitedly, "tell them about the funny earth animals." The old man chuckled. "Which story do you want? The one about the rabbits or the one about the chickens?" "The rabbits." Kimbo clapped her hands. Won-tae smiled at the aliens. When Earth first started sending animals to other worlds, they thought they were being very careful. They chose peaceful worlds with mild climates, nice, safe places. "What happened?" Veltar asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer would be disturbing. "Well, they sent some Earth rabbits to a lovely, peaceful planet called Serenity Prime. Beautiful world, very gentle native life, perfect climate. The rabbits were supposed to be a gift for the local children." "And?" Crixtal prompted. "The rabbits ate everything," Won-tae said with a grin. "Turns out, when you take animals that evolved on Earth and put them on a world where nothing ever learned to defend itself, well, the rabbits thought they had found paradise. The entire ecosystem changed in 6 months," Nam-tae added. "The rabbits weren't trying to cause trouble. They were just being rabbits. But rabbit behavior on a world where no plants had thorns and no animals had claws. Complete ecological transformation," Yoon-soo finished. "Now Serenity Prime grows Earth-style plants and the local animals have learned to hide underground." Veltar stared at them. "Earth rabbits terraformed an entire world by accident." "Not terraformed exactly," Won-tae corrected. "More like encouraged rapid evolutionary change. The native plants and animals adapted pretty quickly. They had to." A new woman approached the table carrying a medical bag. She looked young and competent. "Good morning, everyone," she said cheerfully. "I'm Jo Yoon, the village medic. I heard we had visitors who might not be used to our local environment. Everyone feeling okay?" "We are managing," Veltar said carefully. "Good to hear. Let me know if anyone experiences unusual symptoms. I've got treatments for most common reactions to local food and air." She opened her medical bag to check something. Inside the bag, Veltar could see substances that his database identified as restricted military enhancement drugs, exotic healing compounds that existed only in theoretical research, and several items that weren't supposed to exist at all. "You keep very advanced medical supplies," Mordun observed. "Oh, this is just basic first aid for living here," Jo Yoon replied. "When your environment can cause 17 different types of chemical poisoning, you learn to be prepared. Most of this stuff is just common sense preventive medicine." She pulled out a small bottle of clear liquid. "This, for example, is just antidote for root borer venom. Everyone carries some during planting season." The bottle contained a substance that the Silani military used as an enhancement drug for their elite special forces. "Root borers?" Crixtal asked weakly. "Local insects," Nam-tae explained. "They eat plant roots, but sometimes they bite farmers by mistake. Their venom causes temporary paralysis and hallucinations, but it's not usually fatal if you treat it quickly. Not usually fatal, Veltar repeated. Well, you might lose a limb if you don't get treatment within an hour, Yoon-soo added helpfully. But that's only if you're allergic to the venom. Most people just get sick for a few days. Kimbo finished her fruit and climbed down from her grandfather's lap. Can I go play with Spark before school? She asked her mother. Stay where I can see you, Park High replied. And remember, don't let Spark get too excited. We don't want another incident like last week. The child ran off toward what looked like a small barn. A few minutes later, she emerged holding something that made Veltar's entire sensor array start screaming warnings. It looked like a cross between an earth cat and a small dragon. It had fur, but the fur glowed with its own light. It had large, friendly eyes and a purring sound that registered on audio sensors as capable of stunning large predators. When it opened its mouth to yawn, Veltar could see teeth that could probably cut through starship hull plating. Kimbo was petting it like a normal house cat. That's Spark, Kim Day explained casually. Bo found him as a baby last year, probably lost his mother to one of the seasonal predator migrations. He's very gentle. Gentle? Morden whispered. Oh yes, Spark wouldn't hurt anyone. Though he did accidentally melt through the barn wall last week when he got excited about dinner time. That's why we've been keeping him outside more. The creature that the 8-year-old was playing with was apparently capable of melting through solid walls when it got happy about food. What does it eat? Veltar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Mostly local plants, Wante replied, though he likes metal scraps as treats. Old farming equipment, spare ship parts, that kind of thing. We have to be careful not to leave anything important where he can reach it. Their pet ate metal. Their 8-year-old daughter was playing with a creature that consumed industrial materials and could melt through walls with its emotions. And they thought this was normal. Veltar watched Kimbo throw a ball for Spark to chase. The creature bounded after it with obvious joy, leaving small glowing footprints in the ground where its paws touched the earth. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Park High said, following his gaze. Perfect weather for the children to play outside. After breakfast, Veltar and his officers needed several hours to recover in their ship's medical bay. Their suits' detox systems had worked so hard that they needed to be completely recharged. When they finally emerged, they found Kim Day waiting, patiently outside their ship, reading what appeared to be a book. Feeling better? Kim Day asked, looking up from his reading. We are functional, Veltar replied carefully. Through his helmet's display, he could see that Kim Day's book was actually a technical manual about something called Advanced Soil Chemistry for Hostile Environments. Good to hear. I thought you might like to see more of the town while you're here. Unless you need to leave soon? Veltar looked at his officers. Krixtal was still running diagnostics on her suit's systems. Morden was checking his weapons, though Veltar wasn't sure what good they would do against an environment that could kill them just by existing. We have time, Veltar said. We are curious about your settlement. As they walked through the town, Veltar began to understand just how wrong their first impressions had been. This wasn't a group of desperate survivors clinging to life on a death world. This was a thriving community that had simply chosen to make their home in conditions that would terrify most civilized species. They passed a school where a woman named Bei Min was teaching children about local biology. The students, including Hong Yu and Shin Ai, were examining insects that Veltar's database classified as extreme threat avoid contact. Now remember, Bei Min was saying to her class, the red-striped ones are mostly harmless. They'll only Paralyze you for a few hours if they bite. The blue-striped ones are the ones you need to be careful with. A boy named Hong Yu raised his hand. What about the ones with both colors? Good question, the teacher replied. Those are the seasonal variant. They're only dangerous during mating season when their venom becomes more potent. The rest of the year, they're actually quite helpful for pest control. Shin Ae, a girl who looked to be about 10 years old, was gently holding one of the red-striped insects. It was the size of her palm and had mandibles that could probably bite through Silani armor. It tickles, she said with a giggle. That's its defensive mechanism activating, Bei Min explained patiently. The tickling sensation means it's releasing mild toxins through its feet. That's normal behavior for this species. The child was experiencing what the teacher called mild toxins and describing it as tickling. Educational system, Veltar observed. We believe in hands-on learning, Bei Min replied, having noticed the aliens watching her class. The children learn to interact safely with their environment from an early age. It's important they understand what's dangerous and what's just enthusiastic. Enthusiastic? Crixtal asked. Some of the local life forms are very energetic, one of the students, Hong Yu, explained. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just excited to meet new people. Like the singing flowers by the river. The flowers sing? Mordun asked. Oh yes, Shin-ae replied, carefully placing her insect back in its container. But you have to wear ear protection, or their songs will make you fall asleep for a couple days. They don't mean any harm, though. They just want to share their music. The children spoke about potentially lethal flora with the same tone they might use to discuss slightly over-enthusiastic pets. They continued through the town and met Kang Do, the community engineer. He was working on what he called basic infrastructure maintenance. This involved adjusting machines that regulated an atmosphere toxic to most known life forms, maintaining power systems that ran on locally refined materials that glowed with their own energy, and testing water purification systems that could process liquid that would dissolve most starship hulls. It's not complicated work, Kang Do explained as he adjusted something that was making Veltar's radiation detectors very nervous. The local environment is pretty stable once you understand its patterns. We just have to make sure our systems can handle the seasonal changes. What kind of seasonal changes? Veltar asked. Oh, you know, summer heat that can melt some metals, winter cold that makes atmospheric gases crystallize, and spring storms that carry enough electrical charge to power a small city. Nothing too dramatic. Kang Do was describing weather patterns that would require planetary evacuation on most worlds, and the equipment handles this. How? We build everything to be a bit more robust than standard, Kang Do replied. The kids learn basic engineering alongside their regular studies. By the time they're teenagers, most of them can build or repair anything in town. This explained why 15-year-old Li Jun had been carrying tools that Veltar's systems identified as weapons. They weren't weapons at all. They were normal household repair equipment designed to function in an environment that happened to be extremely hostile to most forms of life. The breaking point came when they encountered Yang Hai returning from what she cheerfully called picking up dinner. She was dragging something behind her that made every alarm system on Veltar's suit activate simultaneously. The creature was enormous, with armored plates that could probably deflect starship weapons, claws designed for ripping through, solid rock, and a head full of teeth that looked like they belonged on a space combat mech. It was clearly dead, but even in death, it was impressive enough that Veltar's combat training identified it as a Category 5 extinction event organism. Good hunting today, Kim Dae commented as Yang Hai passed by. Not bad, Yang Hai replied. Found this one near the Eastern Valley. Should be enough meat for the community barbecue this weekend. Community barbecue? Morden whispered. Oh yes, Park Hai said, appearing beside them with her daughter, Kim Bo. We have a town gathering every few weeks. Everyone brings something to share. Yang Hai always provides the main course. You eat that? Krixtal pointed at the monster. That Yang Hai was dragging toward town. The meat is actually quite mild, Yang Hai explained. You just have to be careful how you prepare it. If you cook it too quickly, the natural toxins don't break down properly. But slow roasting over local wood makes it very tender. Kim Bo skipped alongside the massive carcass. Can I help with the cooking, Miss Yang? Of course, little one. But you'll need to wear your heat gloves. The cooking fires get pretty warm. Veltar's sensors informed him that the local wood Yang Hai mentioned burned at temperatures that would melt most military equipment. The heat gloves an 8-year-old child would wear to help cook were apparently designed to protect against industrial-level thermal hazards. As they walked back toward the center of town, Veltar tried to process what he had learned. These humans hadn't conquered this world through superior technology or military might. They had simply moved here and adapted to it. More than that, they had made it comfortable. Commander, his science officer's voice came through his private comm channel. I've been analyzing our observations. I don't think these humans understand that they're living in impossible conditions. What do you mean? Veltar asked quietly. They seem to think this is normal. According to their conversations, they chose this world because it offered them room to grow and a good environment for raising children. They actually seem to prefer it to more civilized worlds. Prefer it? Yes, sir. I've been monitoring their communications. They refer to safer worlds as boring and too easy. Apparently, they find normal atmospheric conditions bland and standard gravity restrictive. Veltar stopped walking. Are you telling me that these humans deliberately chose to live on a Class 12 death world because they found normal worlds insufficiently challenging? That appears to be the case, sir. Looking around at the thriving community, watching children play safely in conditions that would kill trained warriors, Veltar began to understand something that made his blood run cold. These weren't survivors. These weren't refugees or desperate colonists making the best of a terrible situation. These were humans who had found a world dangerous enough to feel like home. That evening, the entire community of New Busan gathered in what they called the town hall. It was a simple wooden building, but Veltar's sensors detected that the wood itself was from local trees that were apparently fireproof, acid-proof, and strong enough to be used as starship hull material. Mayor MJ, a calm woman with graying hair, stood at the front of the room. Behind her sat other community leaders, including Dr. Ryu Chan, who had introduced herself as the settlement's xenobiologist. Welcome, friends from the stars, Mayor MJ said formally. We don't often have visitors from outside our system, but you are welcome here for as long as you wish to stay. Veltar stood to respond. Around him, human families sat comfortably, on chairs that had been carved from local materials. Children played quietly with toys that his suit's sensors tagged as various levels of hazardous. Adults shared food and drinks that could probably fuel starships. We thank you for your hospitality, Veltar said. We came here expecting to find survivors in need of rescue. Instead, we have found something we did not expect. What's that? Dr. Ryu Chan asked with genuine curiosity. Veltar struggled to find the right words. A successful human colony thriving in conditions that should be impossible. The humans looked, puzzled by this statement. Impossible, Mayor MJ asked. What do you mean? This world, Veltar gestured around them, is classified as a Class 12 death world. The atmospheric toxicity alone should prevent any carbon-based life from surviving more than minutes. The radiation levels, the gravity, the hostile life forms. By any reasonable standard, this planet should be completely uninhabitable. The humans exchanged glances that suggested they found this classification amusing. Well, Dr. Ryu Chan said thoughtfully, I suppose it depends on what you're used to. We actually chose this world because it reminded us of some of Earth's nicer environments. Nicer environments? Crixtal asked weakly. Oh yes, Dr. Ryu Chan continued. The atmosphere here is much cleaner than most industrial worlds. The gravity is actually quite comfortable. It helps keep us in good physical condition. And the local ecosystem is beautifully diverse and active. But the toxins, Mordun protested. Our sensors detect poisonous compounds in everything. Poison is really just a matter of perspective, Dr. Ryu Chan replied with a gentle smile. What's toxic to one species might be perfectly nutritious to another. Humans evolved eating plants that most galactic species would consider biological weapons. Grandmother OK, the elderly matriarch of one of the founding families, spoke up from her seat near the front. When we first left Earth, we tried living on those safe worlds the government recommended. Nice places with clean air and mild weather. What happened? Veltar asked. We got sick, Grandmother OK said simply. The air was too clean. The food was too pure. Our immune systems had nothing to do, so they started attacking our own bodies. The doctor said we needed more environmental challenge to stay healthy. Environmental challenge, Veltar repeated. Human. Biology requires a certain level of adversity to function properly, Dr. Ryu Chan explained. On worlds that other species consider perfectly safe, humans develop all sorts of health problems. Depression, immune system failures, bone density loss. We need environments that keep our bodies and minds active. So you came here. After trying several other worlds, yes. This one has just the right balance of challenge and livability. The children are healthier here than they ever were on safer worlds. The adults are more energetic and creative. Everyone thrives. Veltar looked around the room at the thriving community. The children did look remarkably healthy and alert. The adults moved with easy confidence and obvious contentment. Even the elderly, like Grandmother OK, seemed vigorous and active. We've been analyzing your settlement, he said slowly. Your technology, your social structure, your adaptation methods. We expected to find evidence of struggle, of barely controlled survival. Instead, we find comfort and prosperity. That's because you're thinking about it backwards, Mayor MJ said kindly. You see a hostile environment that we've somehow managed to survive in. We see a comfortable home that happens to be exciting to live in. Exciting? Commander, Dr. Ryu Chan said. Let me ask you something. What kind of world did your people evolve on? Silani Prime, Veltar replied. A world of constant storms, acidic rain, and metal-eating atmospheric compounds. We are warriors because our environment made us strong. And now your people live. On safer worlds? Yes. We conquered our environment and moved to more civilized planets. How do you feel when you return to Silani Prime? Veltar considered this. Alive. Alert. Every sense sharp, every muscle ready. It is invigorating. Exactly, Dr. Ryu-chan smiled. Humans never conquered our environment. We just spread out to find new ones that could challenge us in different ways. Earth was our Silani Prime. When we left Earth, we didn't want to become soft by living on easy worlds. We wanted to find new challenges. So you deliberately seek out dangerous worlds? We seek out worlds where we can grow, Mayor MJ corrected. Danger is just a side effect of growth. Grandmother OK stood up and walked over to a cabinet at the side of the room. Commander, I have something for you and your crew, she returned, with a wooden box carved from local materials. Inside were bottles of various sizes, each containing liquids or preserved foods. Local specialties, she explained. Some preserves made from seasonal fruits, dried vegetables from our gardens, and a bottle of what we call gentle fermented grain spirits. Veltar's sensors immediately began cataloging the contents. The preserves contained enough natural acids to clean starship engines. The dried vegetables included minerals that existed only in theoretical physics. The gentle alcohol registered as approximately 90% pure ethanol with trace amounts of compounds that didn't appear in any known database. This is very generous, Veltar said carefully, but our ship's dietary systems may not be able to process these safely. Oh, these aren't for eating, Grandmother OK laughed. Well, the preserves might be okay in very small amounts, but mostly these are for your ship's systems. The alcohol makes an excellent emergency fuel additive. The vegetable extracts can, be used to clean corroded metal, and the fruit preserves work wonderfully for sealing hull breaches. She was giving them industrial supplies disguised as food gifts. We found that most off-world visitors can use our local products for maintenance purposes, even if they can't consume them safely, Dr. Ryu-chan added helpfully. You've had other visitors? Crixtal asked. Oh, yes, Mayor MJ nodded. Traders, explorers, the occasional research vessel. Most of them need emergency repairs by the time they reach us. Space travel is hard on equipment. And you help them? Of course. That's what neighbors do. As the evening continued, Veltar listened to stories of human daily life on Kepler 442b. Tales of children learning to farm in radioactive soil, of adults developing new techniques for living in toxic environments, of communities working together to build thriving settlements in conditions that would devastate most civilizations. What struck him most was how normal it all sounded to them. They weren't heroes or warriors or survivors against impossible odds. They were just people living their lives in a place they found comfortable. When it came time to leave, Veltar found himself reluctant to go, not because he wanted to stay on this death world, but because he wasn't sure how to report what he had found. Commander, Dr. Ryu-chan said as they walked back to his ship, what will you tell your superiors about us? Veltar thought about this carefully. I will tell them that we have discovered a human settlement that has successfully colonized a Class 12 death world. I will recommend that this world be classified as occupied territory and that humans be reclassified as a species capable of thriving in extreme environments. Will that cause problems for us? No, Veltar said slowly. But it may cause problems for my people. We have spent centuries thinking we understood what makes a species strong. You have shown us that we may have been wrong about many things. As his ship lifted off from New Busan, Veltar watched the human settlement shrink below them. Lights twinkled in windows where families were settling down for the night. Children were probably being tucked into beds in houses built from materials toxic to most life forms. Adults were likely making plans for tomorrow's work in gardens full of plants that could kill trained warriors, and none of them thought any of this was unusual. "Sir?" Krixtal asked as they reached orbit. "What do we tell the Council?" Veltar looked at the data they had gathered. Environmental readings that should indicate a sterile wasteland. Life sign readings that showed a thriving ecosystem. Energy. Signatures that suggested a civilization comfortable with technology that barely made sense. "We tell them the truth," he said finally. "We tell them that humans are not just another species. They are gardeners who plant flowers in volcanoes and call it home improvement." Behind them, Kepler 442b continued its rotation, carrying its cargo of impossible humans through the deadly beauty of space.